Hey everyone, and welcome to this reading wrap-up video. Today we are doing the reading wrap-up for August. So, I guess I've been in sort of a reading slump in August. I didn't realize I was in a reading slump until I got to the end of the month and realized I only read 3 books in August. And that is, for me, like nothing. Because I can read a book in like 2 days. But it's just, I don't know, it just took me a lot longer to read these books, and it's not because I wasn't into them, it just took me a lot longer to read them, and I was also kind of busy with other stuff in August. August turned out to be a lot crazier a month than I thought it was going to be. My family dealt with some stuff. It's been a crazy month, which I feel like I've said every month this summer. Like, in total, it's just been a really, really crazy summer, and I hope that now that we're pushing into fall, it slows down. I think it will. So I am excited to slow down and to get back into a routine and to get back to my writing, which I haven't written in forever. But yeah, anyway, so that's a little bit of a life update, and now let's jump into the reading wrap-up. Let's jump into the reading wrap-up for August. I only read 3 books, which is crazy, but yeah. The first book that I read was Dear Henry, Love, Edith. I want to say Becca Kinzer, but I can't quite remember who the author was. I want to say Becca Kinzer, but I might be wrong. Anyway, Dear Henry, Love, Edith. I got it from the library, and I read it at the very beginning of the month. I was super, super excited for this book because it has been so hyped. Like, everything I saw on Instagram about it was like 5 stars. Everybody loved it, so I really thought I was going to love it. And I did not. It was good, but I didn't love it. So, Dear Henry, Love, Edith is about 2 people. Henry, he lives in like the downstairs part of his house because he injured his knee falling off a ladder at work, and he had to have all these surgeries, and he's in recovery now, so he can't climb the stairs at his house. And Edith is she is a widow. She lost her husband at a very young age, not very long after they were married. Well, they got married at like 18, and they were married for like 10 years or so, but, you know, still, she lost him in her late 20s, early 30s or something like that. And she is getting ready to go on as like a medical missionary to a charity in Africa, but she's waiting for her visas to come through, and while she's waiting for her visas to come through, she's going to be volunteering at a crisis nursery. And so she's supposed to be staying with Henry's niece, who is only like a couple years younger than him, because, you know, he was a surprise baby. His oldest sibling had a kid around the same time he was born, so they're, despite being uncle and niece, they're very close in age, which is something I understood, because we have that in my family. My mom and her niece my mom's niece is actually 3 years older than my mom, so, you know, I understand that in my family. But anyway, so the niece's, her house floods, and so she can't house Edith anymore, so she convinces Henry to house Edith. Since he can't climb the stairs of his house, Edith can stay in the upstairs and he can stay in the downstairs, and they'll, you know, never see each other, especially because Edith works the night shift at the nursery, so their schedules are opposite. They live on different floors. They'll never see each other. But in all this like talking back and forth, they both get under the impression that the other person is old and elderly. Because, Henry's niece tells Edith, oh, well, it's my uncle, and he can't climb stairs anymore because of his knee and whatever. So Edith just assumes that being an adult's uncle and having issues not being able to climb the stairs, he must be elderly. And Henry assumes that Edith is elderly because she's a widow, and she's they said her niece thought she was retired from nursing. She's actually just taking a break from nursing to go on this medical mission trip, but they just assume that she's going because she's retired. Anyway, so they both think each other are old, And so they're writing each other notes in the house, like leaving them in the kitchen for each other to get, and they're becoming friends that way. Meanwhile, they're seeing each other around town, and they don't know it's each other. They just know it's like this other really attractive person in town. And so there's that kind of mix up. And that part was cute. But once like the truth kind of came out, then it got a little bit like there was some plot points of fake dating and lying once the truth came out, and I'm not a fan of the whole like fake dating and lying to the other person kind of trope. I know it happens a lot and a lot of people really like it. I just feel like it never ends well. For one thing, like there's usually not any real consequences for all that lying, especially like to those you're closest to. Like, why would you do that? And second of all, there's usually like never any point to it. Like, why are you doing that? It's just complicating things. It's just complicating the plot. And if I want a plot complication, I want there to be a point to it. And I don't usually think that fake dating has a point, so I don't tend to like that plot complication. So that kind of bugged me about the book. The other thing that bugged me about the book is like the wacky townspeople. Now, I love a good wacky towns person. Like, I think that quirky small towns are super fun, but I also want them to be believable. And I feel like the town and all the townspeople in Dear Henry Loved Edith were just so extremely quirky that it was beyond believable. Like, I just couldn't believe that any town or any people actually acted like this, you know. I want quirky small towns, but I want them to be realistically quirky and not just so far beyond the scale that you're just like, seriously, nobody actually acts like this. And that's how I kind of felt about it. So in the end, I only gave it 3 stars, which is a bummer because I was so excited about it. But yeah, I found the townspeople to be unbelievable, and I got annoyed at the fake dating. So those 2 things knocked me down 3 stars. But like for the first third of the book, when it was just like about them passing the notes and stuff, I was really, really into it. And then it just went south for me, unfortunately. So 3 stars. The second book I read this month was Positively Penelope by Basham. And this is a reread of it because I first read an advanced reader copy way back in April, but I wanted to reread it so that my mind was fresh for my release day video, which I just filmed like 5 minutes ago, so it's obviously really late. But everything that I talked about in that video, you can check that out. All I'll say about it this time is that 5 stars, even on my reread, it is 5 stars and beyond. I loved it even more on the reread than I did the first time, for reasons that I explained in that other video. But yeah, Penelope and Matt. So his actual name is, I don't know if it's pronounced Matthias or Matthias. And I kind of want to know because I feel like I say it differently in my head all the time. I have a feeling it's Matthias. No? I don't know. What do you guys think? Anyway, but Penelope and Matt are like a new OTP, guys. Like, I have to put them in top couples tier. Like, I love them so much. 5 stars. That's all I'm going to say about that because I literally just filmed a video about it. So if you want to know what I think about it, go click on that video. The third book I read this month is Ladies of the Lake by Cathy Gohlke. I don't know. I've just butchered that, I'm sure. Y'all can see it. Ladies of the Lake. So this follows four female friends. There's a group of 4 friends, but it really follows the 2 of them, which are Adelaide and Dottie. And the chapters kind of switch back and forth between flashbacks of when they were kids at this boarding school and now as they're adults, like 17 years later or so. And as they were kids growing up at the boarding school, when they were about to graduate from the boarding school, it was like the beginning of World War I. And the neighboring farm to the boarding school, the family that lived there was German. And there was a young man that both of these friends were in love with, and he is German. And so he faced some he faced some issues from his community because of that, and they both kind of had to decide whether or not they would stand with him. And obviously, since they were both in love with him, there's kind of a love triangle there. And you know what? Normally, I hate love triangles, but I did not hate this one. I felt this one was handled really, really well. There are two friends with a crush on the same boy, but he is not wishy-washy. I hate love triangles that are like, oh, one person has to decide between two people, mainly because I'm always of the opinion, like, if you cannot decide which one you like more, you probably don't like either of them enough to form a life with them. Just my opinion. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But he is not wishy-washy, so there's not that drama. It's just the drama of they both fall in love with him. He is obviously in love with one of them. I won't say who because that's a spoiler. But it causes a rift between those friendships. And then there is a tragedy that takes place that leaves them believing that one of the four friends is dead. That's all I can say on the matter without spoiling things. But so it's got these flashbacks from back when they were young versus these flashbacks back when they're older women. One of the main girls, her daughter is now graduating from that school and wants her to come to the graduation, but she is afraid to come to the graduation because if she comes to the graduation, then she'll be seeing her three friends for the first time in all these years since the love triangle and the war and the tragedy that supposedly ended the life of one of the girls. So she does not think that reconciliation will be achievable, and so she doesn't want to come, but her daughter really wants her to come, so she kind of has to make that decision of, am I going to go support my daughter and am I going to face these people? So they're all kind of carrying guilt and grief and all these things, and it's the question of, is there going to be reconciliation for these four friends that were so close? It's hard to talk about this book without spoiling things because it gives you, since it goes back between like the kind of present adult timeline and the children timeline, it kind of tells you where the adults are at the beginning of the story, but it also doesn't really spoil how they got there. And so you kind of see that through the children's timeline. I actually felt like the way they handled certain things that have to do with a marriage. That's all I can say. Oh my goodness. I wish I could talk to you guys about this. Oh my goodness. The way that they handled certain things that have to do with the marriage, I didn't really appreciate. Like, I didn't feel like that had to be a mystery, and it's not revealed until the very, very end. And I was like, you could have told us that. Like, it wouldn't really have changed my view. Well, I guess I don't know that for sure because I kind of peeked at the end before I got there, so. But yeah, I gave this 4 stars. It was a very kind of slower, melancholy kind of read. It wasn't the romp through the park that Positively Penelope or even Dear Henry Love Edith was, but I felt like it was a very, very good read. And I felt like it was a read that we kind of all need sometimes. Like, there's the way they handled reconciliation and forgiveness and moving on in this book, I felt like is a reminder to all of us, because sometimes life hands us circumstances that create rifts in our friendship and in our relationships, and to be able, even after all these years, to reconcile and to move on and to realize that what the devil had for bad, God used for good. It's really special, and I feel like it's a lesson that we could all hear, that even if it's not something that's pertinent to our lives in that moment, like I don't have any friendships that have been broken for all these years, so it's not, directly relevant to me, yet at the same time the lessons are relevant, because the lessons are relevant to all of us, and we could all use that reminder of the importance of forgiveness and reconciliation and just wanting the best for the other person, because that's the way these girls are. Even when they feel like their friend stabbed them in the back and broke their hearts, they still want the best for them, and that's just Christian love right there. And I think that Christian love and loving others more than yourselves and wanting to put them first was represented in this book very, very well. Even though it's not easy, sometimes you have to love the other person and want the best for them despite so much pain. And that's the way it is in this book. Like, they're loving the other person despite the fact that they're still kind of angry at the other person and filled with pain from the other person. They're still choosing to love the other person. And I think that's a lesson that everybody could hear, no matter what your circumstances. Like, let's be reminded that we can always choose to put others first. So yeah, 4 stars and maybe 4.5 stars. Yeah, those were the 3 books that I read in August. It wasn't very many, and this video is going to turn out really short, but hopefully there'll be more in September. I'll talk to you guys later.